Everybody's joined us so far. A warm welcome to this happy hour. And as Sally said, it's the first of our spring summer series. It feels really strange that only 2 months ago today we started our annual summit, a festival of ideas, where we showcased a number of important areas. And this one builds on that to look specifically as part of Global Intergenerational Week, issues in relation to intergenerational living. And we've got a stellar cast for you to look at a variety of pieces of work that are going on, but in particular to put the spotlight on the work of InCommon and their partnership with Clarion and Orbit, as well as the sort of evaluation that the HousingLIN has been undertaking to externally review the excellent work, if I could give just a sneak personal view of this project. If you haven't come across InCommon, you'll hear a little bit more, I'm sure, from Serena and Mel, but again, putting age-inclusive, intergenerational living very much in the heart of their business, supported by funding for UKRI from Clarion and others. We're really pleased that we were commissioned to undertake the review and the evaluation. So you're going to hear from Lois about that as well. Just before I hand over to Serena, just to draw your attention that the HousingLIN is also very privileged to have joined as part of a collection, a consortia of organisations, Intergenerational England, and the work of Charlotte and the team there. We're really inspired and feel that this needs to be part of everybody's DNA. And so putting the spotlight on the work that InCommon is really crucial to that, and how we can encourage the sector more generally to adopt age-friendly and intergenerational living principles. It's something that personally I'm really hope that will come out of the Older Persons Housing Task Force, and not just look at old age as in terms of older people, but also look at aging in terms of the whole life course as well, and the importance of the connectivity between all generations in taking that forward. And if you're interested in the work of generational living more broadly, do have a look at the HousingLIN website and our intergenerational living pages. But look, enough of the advert from me. What we're really here to hear about is the work of InCommon, the partners, and how this has manifested itself in taking forward a really critical part of their programme and escalating that. So, Serena, can I hand over to you? You'll be followed by Mel, who in turn will be followed by Lois from the HousingLIN, and last but not least, a dear friend and long-term champion of age-friendly communities, Sarah Mitten from Clarion. So, Serena, let me hand over to you first.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jeremy, and happy Global Intergenerational Week, everyone. My name's Serena, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Programme and Partnerships Lead at InCommon. InCommon is a charity that brings generations together. We connect groups of young people with their older neighbours in sheltered housing, retirement homes and community centres to learn and build friendships together. Our activities to help boost older people's well-being, support children's social and emotional learning, and build more age-friendly communities for all. Thanks so much for joining today's happy hour and allowing us the time to talk a bit more about InCommon and how we work to develop intergenerational connections in sheltered housing, as well as launching our latest programme, Empower, asking you all to join an intergenerational movement. So we'd love to start by asking you to take a minute to just think about a relationship that's been meaningful to you from another generation. This could be with your own children, parents, grandparents, a neighbour or a friend. And I want you to have a think about how they make you feel. How is this different from relationships with your peers? And what have you learned from each other? Why is that friendship important to you? If anything comes to mind, please feel free to pop it in the chat, as we'd love to hear from you. But I thought it might be nice to share my experience too. So the person that comes to my mind is my friend Sandra. In 2016, I began volunteering through Age UK's telephone friendship service and was matched with Sandra. Sandra's husband had recently passed away. She's housebound. She's never had any children and has a really small support network. She often goes a whole week without speaking to another person. On the face of it, my role as a volunteer is to support her, but the reality is far from that. We speak every week for 30 minutes about the weather, about what we've had for dinner, about politics. We really do set the world to rights. And she offered me support and advice and told me to go for the job at InCommon. She really helped me with my application there too. The mutual support and connection we share during these phone calls has gotten us through many of life's ups and downs, and it's also resulted in an amazing 7-year-long friendship and counting. So I really know firsthand the impact of long-standing intergenerational relationships, and it drives my work to grow InCommon's programs so that more people can experience and benefit from the joy of intergenerational connection. So to set the context a little bit, headlines about our aging population paint a really thought-provoking picture. 1 in 6 people in the UK are already aged over 65, and the number of people over 80 is expected to double by 2035. The underlying fact is that we're getting older, and there's a considerable concern about how we might offer the right care, housing, and health requirements of an aging population. Instead of cultural pessimism, aging is and should be seen as a lifelong process, and a shift in attitude will drive changes in healthcare practice and encourage wider educational and economic actions to improve lifelong aging for all. Alongside our aging population, our communities are often divided across age lines, and there are few spaces to build meaningful relationships with people from another generation. This is especially true at either end of the age spectrum. The youngest and oldest members of our society are least likely to be friends with someone from a different generation. This fuels many of the issues that we see around us, including narratives of intergenerational divides and what it really means to grow older. Such narratives and attitudes are harmful for social cohesion and contribute to some of the greatest challenges we face as a nation, from loneliness and anxiety to poor health and ageism. Take mental health, for example. Research has shown that 1 in 4 young people now agree that it's normal to be unhappy and depressed when you're old. If you've heard of the U-curve of happiness, you'll know that studies have actually found happiness increases after middle age and peaks at the end of life, a pattern that shows up around the world. Comparatively, during a study looking into young people's mental health, 52% of young people said that they'd experienced negative emotions which affect their everyday life, and 43% said they struggled to cope. Instead of making assumptions based on negative stereotypes, what would it look like if we brought younger and older people together to talk about their feelings? Maybe an older person could relate to a young person's struggle, or be able to inspire and encourage them, letting them know that globally people are happiest at end of life and things can and will get better with support. This is where our work comes in. Intergenerational practice really gives us the tools to act. It's a broad, inclusive approach that can bring about lasting intersectional change for society. We couldn't have put it better than Ken, one of our older volunteers at our intergenerational panel, speaking about his role in supporting the younger generation.
The thing I have in mind, that's always in my mind, is that whatever we like to think, the fact is that the children are our future. When we're dead and gone,
Yes.
they're going to be adults and running the world. And it's almost our duty to give them the best start, the best care and nurturing advice we can while we can.
Yeah. So we run 3 programs at InCommon. Connect is our first program, bringing primary school age children together with their neighbours in retirement homes to do exactly that, connect and build friendships. Social Action is our program where we bring both primary and secondary ages to actively make a positive difference on the issues that affect their local communities and wider society. And we've worked closely with Clarion, and hopefully Sarah will tell you a little bit more about Social Action too on the call. And finally, our Empower, our new support and training offer for housing associations outside of London. So I work across Connect and Social Action and have a unique role that's embedded in this direct delivery work. I see our impact on the ground, and I really do love going to our intergenerational sessions. The delight that's created when you bring a group of young people and older people together is honestly magical. And through our workshops, we're able to build purposeful relationships that build confidence and skills, dispelling old narratives that older and younger generations have nothing in common. This is key to building more inclusive, connected, age-friendly communities for all. So from our work over the past 7 years, we really have 3 key learnings. The first is program design, and this is the cornerstone to supporting generations to create meaningful connections that have a broader positive impact. Location is key. We host our regular workshops at often underutilised communal spaces in sheltered schemes. And this is to make it as physically accessible to residents as possible. We connect them with a school that's no more than 15-minute walk away from a scheme or retirement community. And all the participants often tell us that when they see children outside of workshops, they're always surprised when the children remember their names and say hello. We take a scaffolded approach to inclusive design. And what I mean by this is that we build programs with lots of plug-in points for older people to participate, allowing for more confident individuals to lead activities and share skills alongside opportunities to observe and be involved with less demanding dementia-friendly activities. I'd love to share sort of an anecdote from our latest session. It was a games workshop. And the older volunteers actually took it on themselves to bring games, including indoor bowls, pick-up sticks, and snakes and ladders. We had different stations with older volunteers leading the activities. James was really happy to watch the children supervising snakes and ladders, but not really actively participating in the game. He still got loads of joy out of the session. Brian took a more coaching approach, I'd say, to the indoor bowl station. He got involved, but gently guided and encouraged the children. And finally, Nikki was on pickup sticks, and he'd actually just flown in from a trip from Cuba. He was in his shorts and Crocs still, but he was definitely still not going to miss this session. And he took the session very seriously, teaching the children lots of different tricks, even if his head was in a different time zone. It was a really great example of what we talk about in action. We really make an active effort to remove barriers for all residents to get involved. Again, a really good example of this is in our work at Anandi House, which is a sheltered scheme exclusively for older Asian people. We worked with our partner Wandel to have an interpreter present to facilitate, and we designed a mindfulness session with activities that didn't rely heavily on language. Yushara, our translator, told me that the residents had said how much they loved the session and being with the children, particularly as they don't have a regular opportunity to see their own grandchildren. Intergenerational connection runs far deeper than words. The second learning that we have is about co-design. And we believe intergenerational programs should be participant-led and rooted in communities. Our role is to facilitate a connection between older and younger people, supporting them in co-creating and designing a program that works best for them. And we do this through multiple ways. So we include consultations with both children and older people in our programs to get them involved in the design process. And we allow lots of points of feedback during programs, responding to that feedback and applying learning in real time. Our programs place a huge emphasis on building confidence and purpose for our older volunteers. From the start, it's been really important to us that InCommon's programs value the time and experience of older people. Our older participants are volunteers on the program, and they're supporting the next generation to learn and discover more about the world. And when working with older people, it's particularly those who are in the position of receiving care or support, it's really easy to slip into a deficit-based model. So we work really hard to fight against this. Our participants are also included in our governance through our intergenerational panel, and I shared one clip from one of the members on the panel today. The panel is made up of representatives from across our programs, so that's older and younger participants, but also scheme managers, parents, teachers, and the panel really exists to listen to the needs, wants and priorities of the people that we work with. We've recently invited an older participant on the panel to become a trustee as a representative of the group as well. And their first-hand experience of the issues our programme seeks to address has brought a really powerful perspective to our board of trustees. The third learning, it might seem obvious, but I think is often overlooked. Our work is deeply relational. And when relationships are nurtured, valued and prioritised, people are happier and healthier. Communities are stronger and more resilient. And we really offer a holistic support package, which includes door knocking, welfare calls, coffee mornings. It's incredibly important to build trust with the people that we work with, particularly when we're coming into their homes. Developing one-to-one relationships that are reliable can foster that confidence and allow us to work with the most socially isolated people. Finally, I wanted to add that inclusion is really integral to what we do, and inclusion has always been important to InCommon. While older and younger people have a lot in common, they also have a variety of different needs. And to be a success, our intergenerational workshops require a thoughtful approach that includes everyone. So we regularly review our curriculum, making sure our materials are inclusive and accessible. And we've also been recognising the diversity of our participants, building in opportunities for people to share different life experiences. We've developed an anti-prejudice facilitation guidance that includes inclusive language and resources, encouraging curiosity and learning, but also awareness of potential sensitive issues. And we'd be really happy to share this with anyone who's interested after the happy hour too. So if you're interested in working with InCommon, we have capacity for more direct delivery programmes in London starting from September. So please get in touch with me if you'd like to hear more about Connect and social action. But before I hand over to Mel, who will talk about our amazing Empower programme, I'd like to leave you with Geraldine, again, a member of our panel, talking about the power of intergenerational connection.
At first, the residents are sort of saying, oh, this is going to be boring. What are we going to learn from kids? And vice versa, the children would say something like, oh, they're too old. They're not going to know anything. But now that they've spent time in common with each other, they're forming this mutual respect for each other, that the old people isn't written off, neither is the young people. And it's just lovely to see. At first,
Hi everyone, share my screen. Thanks Serena and Geraldine. Hi everyone, my name's Mel and I'm the Empower Programme Manager in InCommon. My pronouns are she, her. I am super excited to be joining you all today and to introduce you to our newest programme, Empower. Our Empower programme supports housing associations and schools to deliver their own impactful intergenerational activities. The programme builds on our 7 years of expertise and evidence that the model of intergenerational work connecting schools and sheltered schemes has a significant impact. We've used the tried and tested model that Serena mentioned from our direct delivery in London when setting up our Empower programmes. We matched sheltered schemes with their local primary schools within a 15-minute walk. We encourage regular visits taking place again in the communal space of the sheltered scheme so that it's accessible for residents and lasting up to 1 hour. We build relationships with and between school teachers and scheme managers to empower them to take ownership of the project and to really deliver their own impactful intergenerational activities. We know that barriers that can be encountered by local intergenerational projects. A big part of InCommon's role is the initial setup of intergenerational projects. We do the school matching, as scheme managers don't always have the capacity to build relationships within the community, even though many would like to. We engage a scheme's local school and get them really excited about participating, and we try and remove barriers for them. We use our experience as facilitators to empower school teachers to lead the intergenerational activity. So this is slightly different to in London, where a member of the InCommon team would do it. And we also provide assurance on really important topics such as safeguarding, but also how these intergenerational visits can really support the school's curriculum and what they're learning in the classroom. We've developed an online platform to reduce the friction encountered by local intergenerational projects. The platform has been designed to make it easier for housing associations and local schools to schedule and run their own intergenerational visits. On the platform, staff members at schools and older people's housing are matched up with easy options to schedule dates for visits. They choose tried and tested activities from our resource library and crucially collect light touch impact data that gives commissioners an overview of the impact made. To help bring some of this to life, I'd love to give you a bit of a demo of the online platform. So first, before I share my screen, what I'll do is I'll show you the platform as a scheme manager using it. So at this point, they would have been matched up with a local school on the platform. The school will have proposed up to 3 dates for the visit. So we give the school leads the responsibility for proposing dates, because naturally they're going to have a few more restrictions with lessons in the dates and times that they can do. And what we really want to do is avoid any unnecessary back and forth of scheme managers suggesting dates and knowing that the likelihood is the school won't be able to accept them. So at this point, The scheme manager will receive an automated email such as this, letting them know that there's a new event to respond to, and they'll be taken to the platform. So this is the platform, and what the scheme manager has to do is just respond to this event request. So they'll be able to see the dates that the school has proposed. So in this example, we've got Tuesday the 14th of May, 10 to 11, Tuesday the 21st of May, 11 to 12. And we've got activities that the school has suggested that they will do using our resource library, which I'll show you in more detail in a second. But this is a really great opportunity for scheme managers to find out upfront what activities the school have in mind so that they can start talking about that with the residents, trying to engage them to join the visit. They'll also be able to see upfront information such as the number of school children that are joining, the age of the school children, and the number of school staff that are joining. And if the teacher has any additional information that they want to add, they can add it at the bottom. So all the scheme manager has to do is respond to this event. So to do this, they click respond to this event at the top right. They'll see the 2 dates that are proposed, and they can select one of those and confirm them, which I'll do in 1 second. If for whatever reason these dates don't quite work, they can suggest a new date and time, and they'll be able to see the top level availability that the school has set. Or if it really doesn't work for, maybe the communal lounge is temporarily out of bounds, or the scheme manager is on annual leave and they really can't make this work, they can decline the event, and they'll have to give a reason, because we want to obviously make sure that that relationship is nurtured. So for this example, I will just accept the 14th of May, 10 to 11. So then there are some terms and conditions for the scheme manager to accept. So that being that themselves or a relevant colleague will be at the scheme as a kind of point of contact and present for the visit, and really committing to cancelling the visit if it's no longer possible to go ahead. So we know that lots of things can change on the ground quite at short notice, which is absolutely fine, it happens, but we just want to make sure that all parties are aware, because what we wouldn't want is, and I think neither the school or the scheme would want, a group of school children coming if no one was expecting them anymore. And then we've also linked to our safeguarding statement and safeguarding risk assessments as well. So the scheme manager just ticks, I agree to the terms and conditions, and clicks finish. And that's it, they've accepted that date. They can now see that Tuesday, the 14th of May, 10 to 11 has been confirmed. They don't need to contact the school. An automatic email will be sent to the school lead, letting them know the date's been confirmed, and an email will also be sent to the scheme manager confirming that date. They can also add the confirmed date to their calendars. And this is actually feedback. This is a change that we have recently put in following feedback from scheme managers, because again, a lot can happen on the ground and they don't want to, risk having any clashes and forgetting that they've booked this in. So now it's all about preparing for this visit that you know that's going to happen. So we've added a scheme checklist to try and make this easier for scheme managers. So as an example, have you advertised the visit to older residents? You can download InCommon's template poster and resident flyer, and you can just add in the date, time and place that has now been agreed. So whether the place might be communal lounge, but we've also had that in summer, sometimes it's outdoors if there is a little communal garden. We've also got activities and resources that I mentioned. So for the activities, these are more tailored towards schools, because it's the school teachers that are going to lead the intergenerational activity at the scheme. So these are just really tried and tested activities and worksheets for them to make it easier for the school. But we've got resources which is a bit more relevant for the scheme managers, and that is stuff like the intergenerational session poster for schemes, but also a bit of a starters kit and how to make the most of your, and what to expect for your first intergenerational session as well. Then the visit will take place, and after the visit's taken place, both the school teacher and the scheme manager will be sent an email with a really short survey, and I'll just open up the survey so you can have a little look. So did the session take place? How many residents participated? How many residents participated for the first time? And this is how we start getting some of that impact data to show you what's happening on the ground, how many residents are taking part, and how many of those residents, how many unique residents taking part in a light touch way that isn't adding to very busy scheme managers. But just getting that kind of light touch data from them. They're also able to give the visit a rating out of 10, add some of the benefits, and then add in comments about highlights, any improvements or any feedback that they've got for InCommon, and that's really helpful, a way to flag if there's any learnings that would be good for us and that we can support the scheme managers and other project leads going forward. And then any, if there are any safeguarding concerns or incidents that they need to flag with us. So what I'll do now, so that's the scheme manager's point of view. And then all of that data that we're collecting from the post-event survey, we can then give access to commissioners so that you can see from a top level, what's happening at all the scheme locations that are running Empower programs. So this gives you a little bit of an overview of the number of completed visits that have happened, the number of residents that have taken part, again, using that that feedback from and that data from the post-event survey, and then some averages in terms of scheme satisfaction, school satisfaction, and number of children. We've also got, as well as this kind of top level glance as to the impact of your programs, we've also got event surveys, so you can see individual feedback from each event survey. So as an example, I've got one here. This was our first visit from the children, who were all really well mannered and so full of energy. It was an absolute delight to have them, and all the residents loved it. Everyone's so looking forward to the next visit. And you can also download all the data into a Excel CSV. So if you did want to do any, further looks into the data or any kind of bespoke reporting, you can. We've also got a list of all the events so that you can see how many have taken place across the year. You can split it up by scheme if you've got lots of different schemes taking part, and you can also use you can see what's upcoming to see. Actually, it'd be really great if we could join and make we've had in the past examples of colleagues from the marketing team doing a bit of a press piece on upcoming visits. And then we've got the schemes summary. So if you had lots of schemes taking part in the Empower programme, this is like a really good way of seeing up-to-date status of how that school matching and onboarding process is, as well as regular check-ins with myself and the team. So we've got schemes that are awaiting a match, so that's when we're still engaging their local school, a school that's been matched with a scheme that's been matched with a school but haven't yet had a visit, and then active is if they have started having visits and they've had at least one visit. We are continuously improving the platform following feedback from our scheme managers and school leads. As a recent example, we've introduced consultation meetings between project leads at the start of the programme. So this allows them to meet without the children or the residents there, and takes that pressure off. And it's a really nice opportunity for them to introduce themselves, but also discuss what activities would work well, particularly well with the residents, or actually how should we set up the communal lounge ahead of our first visit so that you're ready and you know what to expect on the day. And then we've had some really, really lovely feedback about the platform. It's been really well received by the scheme managers and school leads. So one of our scheme managers, Lisa, says, part of my role is to enable a sense of community here, but it can be a challenge with so many competing priorities. The online platform helps me to fulfill this part of my job description, as it is very easy to use and keeps everything all in one place. And one of our teachers says, the initial video call and demo with Mel was beneficial. She explained really well how to use the platform. The design is so simple to use that I got the hang of it straight away. It makes enabling intergenerational activity a breeze. In our Empower programme, scheme managers are supported to take more ownership of the project. Our scheme managers have reported that taking part has really helped strengthen their relationships with residents and helps to build communities within their scheme. We hear about this impact from scheme managers like Dee, who says that it has helped create a stronger community at the scheme. The visit from the children encouraged residents to join the communal lounge and was one of the highest turnouts for a communal activity. She said that visits from the children afterwards, she's always noticed that the residents are staying behind in the communal lounge and they're having a coffee, they've had a shared experience, they have something to talk about and just something new happening, and they're really excited and buzzing from that experience. So it's a really nice way to bring residents together. Empower has allowed us to scale our intergenerational work across the country. In the past year, we've piloted the programme with 20 sheltered schemes from Clarion Housing Group and Orbit Housing Group. It's been incredible to see local intergenerational projects run all over the country, including Warwickshire and Sheffield. We are now in the exciting position to invite new partners to take part in our Empower programme starting in August 2024. So if you're a housing provider outside of London and are interested in exploring how Empower could support intergenerational activity or schemes, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to share contact details in the chat or email me directly. Thank you so much. I'll now hand over to Lois from HousingLIN, who'll share some of the key findings from their evaluation.
Brill, thanks, Mel. It's really great to be able to present the findings from the evaluation. So, hi everyone, my name is Lois Beach. I am the consultancy and partnership manager at HousingLIN, and I obviously had the privilege of undertaking the evaluation with our small team from the Housing and Consultancy. And this really involved kind of getting under the skin of kind of what the Empower project involved. So we did a number of site visits, we did some focus groups, surveys and interviews, not just with kind of older people. This was about kind of what are the kind of benefits of intergenerational activity for everyone involved. So really exploring how the kind of Empower programme and other intergenerational activity undertaken by InCommon really benefits kind of everyone, and also how I guess the Empower programme fits really easily into kind of what work people are already undertaking. You know, Mel kind of mentioned the kind of benefits that some of the scheme managers felt about how it supported them to do some of their job better. So yeah, what difference does it make? What are the social and economic benefits? You know, to both young people, old people, and also those involved in kind of organising it. So we kind of found out that crucially, you know, the Empower programme and intergenerational activity as a whole really improves the kind of health and well-being outcomes for older participants. So that could be things like reducing social isolation and loneliness. It could be things like increased kind of mental stimulation, as well as even things like, you know, physical exercise. Getting up to go to the communal space might not be some part of somebody's everyday activity. And really from this, we were able to kind of estimate some of the kind of cost savings for different stakeholders. So things like a reduction in kind of avoided use of health and care services. Predominantly that kind of came from the kind of data around a reduction in GP visits from those that are potentially less lonely or isolated. And you can see there the kind of figure of 16,700 a year for in terms of cost savings for that. We also kind of estimated the kind of cost savings from people avoiding going to residential care, potentially through the kind of having healthier and kind of happier lives as a result of InCommon's programme. Obviously, we're not going to say that for everybody that's the case, but for a small portion of people, potentially avoiding that need for a move, and a really, you know, substantial savings there for both kind of local authorities and kind of individuals where they kind of fund their own care. And then I guess interestingly, we looked at kind of the kind of cost savings in terms of how does this benefit kind of retirement housing providers. So through things like, you know, if somebody potentially doesn't have to move, how can that benefit a retirement housing provider effectively through the kind of avoided void costs associated with that? So per year we kind of estimated that roughly £1,000. And you know, I think we put there like an overall estimation therefore of being roughly kind of £65,000 per year. So yeah, really exciting savings. But yeah, it's not just about kind of the benefits of older participants. We also found evidence of it kind of boost the InCommon's activities, boosting kind of social and emotional learning for younger participants. So really hearing things like that it improved confidence and communication skills amongst younger people. You know, there was one individual that I remember I met her, and she was really quiet at the first session, but then by the fifth session that I attended, actually she'd really come out of her shell because of a relationship that she'd developed with one of the old residents there. Also found that it's about kind of building community cohesion. So not just within the kind of wider community. So, you know, we heard about essentially people in the supermarket potentially bumping into children that they met through the work and saying hi, and how that really makes them feel part of the community and yeah, like they belong somewhere. Also within the retirement or sheltered housing community itself as well. I guess, you know, more opportunities for kind of people to come together and socialise, potentially building a sense of community there. Really importantly, this kind of approach to kind of tackling ageism. I think what was really powerful is that we asked the young people involved to describe the older people that they'd met, and some of the words that they used were really, really beautiful. You know, it was a far cry from some of the kind of, I guess, ageist words we might associate through the media that we hear about old people. It was really nice to kind of hear all those kind of positive words associated with aging and the old people involved in the programme. And then lastly, we kind of looked at kind of, okay, the improvements to kind of workplace satisfaction. And, you know, everyone that we kind of spoke to as part of this really was really, really happy to be involved. Not only did it make kind of, you know, the scheme manager role of building communities kind of a bit easier, but also the teachers involved, you know, they said it was really, really important to them. They were able to develop their relationships with pupils, as well as kind of the staff, I guess, at the scheme as well. So some really, really powerful social economic benefits from the InCommon activities there. So yeah, the evaluation it's on our website. I think Sally's helpfully a link to it in our in the chat box. And you know, as I think Jeremy mentioned at the beginning, you know, this is really, really important to us to be involved in this evaluation, as it links in with the role that we have on Intergenerational England's housing steering group. So we're looking at how to kind of effectively measure intergenerational connections and the outcomes of intergenerational housing through this steering group. So this piece of work will really tie in neatly with our work there. But I put my contact details on there. But if anyone wants to learn more about the evaluations or other evaluations that the HousingLIN conduct, please do feel free to get in touch with me. And I think I'm handing over to Sarah to kind of give the Clarion perspective as a housing provider that's already involved in the InCommon activities. Here you go, Sarah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lois. Let me just share my screen. Can somebody give me a wave if that looks like it's there? Fantastic. So thanks so much for inviting me along today. I feel like I have the best job of all because I get to say how this has worked so wonderfully with Clarion. And what I just want to do is to give a little bit of context as to why we first started working with InCommon more generally, but then actually why we were really keen to be one of the first kind of trial organisations for the Empower platform. So I'm just going to touch on a little bit where it sits within the work that we do and some of the impact that it's had to date. So I'm Sarah, I'm the Age Friendly Communities Manager for Clarion Futures. And just for those of you that don't know much about Clarion, we are a large social housing provider. We have around 125,000 homes with over 350,000 people living in those homes and those communities. And we operate across a sort of vast geography. In fact, we work in around 177 local authority areas and invest in building new developments in communities as well, because we know that there is a need for housing. And I guess I wanted to give you this
picture because it's what led to us thinking of communities in an age-friendly way. And actually we were lucky enough many moons ago to work with Jeremy and Lois, and when we were trying to look at what an age-friendly strategy might look like for the business. And you know, I've had the privilege to work as the age-friendly manager for Clarion Futures for a number of years now and really kind of see this come to life. But I just wanted to perhaps give a bit of understanding as to why this is so important to us, the idea of connecting generations. And I guess for us, age-friendly communities are communities that foster healthy and active aging. So where people feel that they can civically participate. You know, we're lending a lot of the wording here from the World Health Organization outcomes, where people feel that they have access to social participation, and that actually those things aren't just defined by your age. Age is a life cycle approach for us, and we want people to remain in our communities feeling that they have autonomy, that they have positive well-being, they feel safe, that they're free from poverty, and whatever age they're at, they continue to develop personally. So for us, we think that age-friendly living is about working with people as early as possible to stop them reaching crises at any point in their lives. And as a large housing provider, we know that we have people across all generations living in our homes. So we tend to have general needs housing rather than specialist services for older people or younger people. But actually, due to our scale, it means that actually we're the fifth largest provider of housing for older people in the country. And so all of these things have to be part of how we think about developing our policies, programmes and strategies. So I won't go into detail on these, but we did build a strategy as part of this work, which was very much about thinking about each part of the business coming together to create those communities where people could age happily and healthily, and that this was about young people, people who are older, and it's totally a cross-generational approach to our work. So one of the things that came out of this was that we launched this just as we were going into a rather large global pandemic, which was interesting in itself. And one of the things that really started to emerge very early on in us delivering this strategy was that generations during the pandemic were really supporting each other with resilience to make sure that people still felt connected and healthy in their homes. And more than ever, people were having to support each other across generations. So we had already been doing a bit of work with InCommon in funding some projects in London, but we said to them, you know, we would love to just get your ideas into, like, actually, how do we sustain some of these intergenerational connections that are so kind of characteristic of the crisis that we were facing? And this was a really beautiful report that was created by Charlotte and Laura at the time, that really kind of helped us to shape what we thought we should be doing moving forward. And a big feature of that was investing in intergenerational projects that sparked that kind of connectivity across our communities. So we have what we call Live Smart schemes, which are properties for over 55s to live independently, so they are not extra care services, the majority of our over 55s housing. And we'd already, as I said, been working with InCommon to invest in projects across London, but we wanted to explore how we scaled that, how we could offer that opportunity to schemes, not just within our capital city, but how we could offer them to our residents living in Birmingham or Leeds or Plymouth, wherever we've got property. And we also were interested in how we could scale the work, because we are large and we have a finite budget for the work that we do. We knew this was a priority, but we couldn't fund like a specialist InCommon project in every single community that we serve. So the final reason why we started exploring this was that we also wanted to provide a legacy to the existing connections that we'd been able to create through the work with InCommon. So again, you know, we couldn't just keep refunding the same thing all the time, because there's emergent themes and priorities and communities. So it felt like a really important time to think about, well, what next with the work that we'd undertaken? And that is when, like magic, the Empower platform was created, and we were, you know, delighted to be part of that kind of partnership with InCommon, with the Bid to Innovate UK, which first allowed that kind of time to test the model. So I think you've seen the screen already today, but I thought I'd just give you like a little bit of an overview of some of the impact that working with InCommon on this work has had to date. We've had lots of visits complete. You can see here that the satisfaction rating is always incredibly high. And I thought I'd just include a quote that had come from our head of strategic services, who oversees our LiveSmart schemes, saying that actually the platform's given a really simple reporting dashboard and allowed us to connect our schemes and schools for sustainable partnership working and to deepen the impact of our work. So I think, it was really good for us to operate at scale, to be able to reach more partners, more of our schools, more of our LiveSmart schemes. And then I just wanted to talk about, how that kind of developed into our intergenerational social action programme. So sorry, this is possibly the most wordy slide I've ever shared, but bear with me. I just wanted to kind of give you a bit of the story around youth social action in the context of Clarion and the social housing sector. So we have been working to embed youth social action over a number of years now. We've worked with around 8,000 young people over the last 6 years, invested through a partnership with the I Will lottery campaign to kind of really spark youth social action in our communities. But one of the themes that really started to emerge as we were developing and iterating the work was that young people were saying there's a real issue with age segregation in our community. We really want to develop and test projects that create intergenerational connections. And actually we want to work with residents and with older people, to co-create those projects, because often we have far more in common than than you would expect. So in last year we were fortunate enough to get some additional funding from I Will to launch our first intergenerational social action programme, and we look for partners who want to support younger and older people to come together to co-create and deliver social action in our communities. And what's so important about this work is that youth voices at the heart, that we tackle age segregation and connect communities across generations, and that the co-design is done by both younger and older people in a very reciprocal relationship. So we have been working with InCommon for the last year on this, and it's been really developing. We're about to do an evaluation of our first year, but what has been really key to that are the different strands to the programme, one of which is our Empower platform. And the Empower platform has allowed us to get all of those partners on board so that they can be connecting to other LiveSmarts or to other older people's services when they perhaps don't have those connections in the community. And that actually beyond the programme, that they're able to continue connecting in that way. So we're really pleased to be able to keep working on developing Empower to make it really fit for purpose around our youth social action work. So I thought I'd just finish on, we're always thinking, what next? And for us, Empower is a real kind of legacy piece for our intergenerational social action work, as well as the more local work that we've been doing over the years. But some of the things that we want to continue doing, with Empower being at the heart of that connection, is really evaluating whether this age-friendly approach is working in our communities. We think it is, but there's lots of new challenges facing people across generations living in our homes. So we're doing a bit of a refresh of our strategy at the moment. As Jeremy mentioned right at the beginning, we're also really pleased to be part of Intergenerational England, which is really pushing for better recognition of the impact of intergenerational connections and why it should be at the heart of policies, procedures, at the heart of what the government's thinking in our communities. And one of the things that we have been looking at with Intergenerational England is how we can have an impact measure that really says this is actually the monetary value of the connections that are created through intergenerational relationships. So that's part of what we're looking at moving forward, and that will really feed into our wider impact thinking in the future. And then finally, we're part of a campaign called Talking Generations, which again is about bringing generations together to have conversations in the simplest of ways, because I think we all know the impact that can have through Serena's friendship with the lady that you'd been befriending, to my relationship with my nan. And, you know, everyone has that story about how an intergenerational relationship has changed their lives in some way. So we're really pleased to be supporting that too. But thank you ever so much for allowing me to have some time to speak.
Well, Sarah, thanks very much for your presentations, and can I thank all the speakers for their great contributions. I think you've really put intergenerational living from your perspective and how it links into a broader world of inclusive living, really, right into the centre of the debate. So really well done. We've got about just under 10 minutes or so for questions. We got some fabulous questions, and I'm just going to sort of quickly run through them. I'm going to start off with many of them from an anonymous attendee. I don't know if that's one or several, but some of them relate to diversity, others relate to faith communities, and that relationship and that connectivity with a broad diversity of customer and residents and local groups. Mel, Serena, can I just kick those two over to you first of all? How do faith communities relate to you and vice versa? And do you have a good diversity of people who take part? And for example, including people with a learning disability or people, autistic people?
Definitely, I can take that question, and also really love to see that question in the chat as well. It's something that I mentioned about inclusivity being really at the core of what we do at InCommon, and so it's really great to hear that other people are interested about the kind of work that we do as well in the community. I guess I've sort of set the context of our programs normally take place in sheltered housing. We do actually run some programs in the community as well, so in community centres, and really those programs are open to everyone to come. I think what I love most about thinking about program design is thinking about all of these things, like how can we celebrate different people's cultures, how can we bring that learning and share that you know, wonderful experience in these rich sessions. They're only an hour, but we managed to pack a lot in. And I mentioned, you know, more about the scaffolding of activities for older people, but we do that as well with the children. The children, it should be known as well that they're accompanied with a teacher and a teaching assistant as well. So when there are children who might need specific requirements or a bit more support, we're aware of that, and we definitely build that into the programming as well. But yeah, when we you know, we run these programs, it's not that we're inviting specific people in, we're working in the community, so we have a really broad range of diverse participants as well. I think I'm not sure, I think someone spoke about, well, talking about the diversity, I am looking at kind of getting more demographic data on this, and it's something that has felt like a little bit of a sensitive issue sometimes to when working with schools, to sort of kind of, I guess, phrase correctly kind of how we're using this data and why it's impactful. But I think, yeah, mainly I'm super interested as well, because we do work with such a range of participants, and just to see where that impact, you know, where we're making an impact in that way is something that I think is our sort of push next, in terms of like what are we doing when we're talking about impact data. But yeah, definitely work with lots of people from different faiths. We're hoping to do sort of a big culture day in the summer as well. So yeah, watch this space and share kind of some of that stuff that we do on social media, hopefully. So yeah, don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, Mel.
Yeah, please, Mel. Yeah, there's some questions about, they want to contact you specifically about Empower, but also whether it's not just London centric, and you said no, you're reaching out. Do you want to just elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Empower is very much available across the country, and I think that's one of the things that particularly excites me, because there's just no real geographic limit. We can kind of just, yeah, expand and scale all over. So with our pilots last year, I think the furthest that we got from London was Sheffield. We were kind of in the Midlands, a lot in the southeast, Kent. But yeah, there is nothing stopping us from going, you know, nationwide and going further out. I mean, for us, it's just making sure that there are, with the current model of kind of reaching out to primary schools that are within a 15-minute walk, it's just, you know, if you've got schools nearby, that's all we need to go and get started, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a call for action. A couple of questions which are probably may have come through the evaluation, and perhaps also for you, Sarah. One is about this level about, have you noticed any change in crime? So sort of the local wider sort of impact in terms of the behaviour of communities. Lois, anything that comes through from the social impact around that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that first. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. And we did kind of, when we were looking at kind of, I guess, secondary data and research, I guess what came through probably links most to like the kind of connected communities element of this, that actually some of the kind of data or research that we looked at was kind of suggesting that, you know, living in a kind of area where community is really connected tends to mean that there is there's a decrease in the number of kind of, I don't know, instances of crime. People, I guess, tend to be yeah, I guess the area tends to be kind of safer, but we weren't able to kind of immediately link that to this project, but that was definitely some, just through the research that we were doing anyway, that kind of did come across definitely in the work we looked at.
Well, I know that there's often a perception again of the fear of crime as well amongst perhaps an older cohort and possibly children as well in terms of that. So perhaps that's something else that comes through that sort of social action and those social networks. And Sarah, somebody asked Amber, I think it is, it would be great to hear about older people, young, how they've shaped and influenced the social action projects. Is this something that is impacted on your programme, that social action, as well as the work that InCommon have taken forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're massively committed to making sure that we don't develop any programs that we haven't co-designed with our residents. That's really important to us, because actually you don't design the right thing unless you have the people that are going to be recipients either of that program or involved in it at the heart of it. So I guess right from the offset, we created our community ambassador model in partnership with our young residents at the time. But as part of the youth social action program that we're delivering at the moment, we do have an intergenerational board that acts as, I guess, the kind of sounding board for the work that we do, but they also look through grant proposals and do lots of work to sort of manage and provide governance for the programme as well.
Right, let me just draw this to a conclusion. We've got a few questions I'd just like to sort of pick up on. Somebody asks about those links with age-friendly boroughs. I know that LIN is doing a lot of work with Ageing Better and things like the Healthy Homes Hubs, the work in Manchester around housing planning and ageing, looking at intergenerational living. So please rest assured that there is a lot of activity both locally and nationally, strategically, linking in with Ageing Better. Our friend from Exeter Care Charitable Trust would like to know a bit more about the type of the information that's available around, and perhaps Serena, about volunteering as well, if there's anything that you link in with Age UK and other localities. And some of you may remember that Exeter Care Charitable Trust were involved in a Channel 4 programme around intergenerational living. So yeah, any thoughts on that, Serena?
Definitely. Well, firstly, would love to have a chat. So I've got those details there, and we'll put them down and we'll get in touch. And yeah, I guess I would just definitely recommend anyone to become an Age UK telephone friend volunteer. It's something that feels like, I guess I say this not in about it, but low commitment. For me, it's half an hour a week, and you always can make space for that time. But the actual huge impact it's had and the friendship that I've gained through it has been amazing. I actually told her that I was doing this and I was going to use her as a little example, and she was like, if my ears are burning at that time, I'll know it's you. So yeah, I'll chat to her about it on Saturday when I next speak to her.
Brilliant. The final question, again, is for Sarah and Serena, but it caught my interest because it talked about the role of the scheme manager and about how to overcome some of the nervousness of starting up a relationship with a local school. But I think it goes beyond just the local education and school system. Are our schemes fit for purposes? Are our services really open and engaging? Can we ensure that we empower communities? Can we make sure our sheltered housing schemes are both age friendly and intergenerational friendly as well? Something that came out of the report that's coming out next week, which looks internationally at different designs. And Charlotte and I were speaking met at a conference last week on this. But from a housing provider's perspective, any final hints and tips, Sarah and Serena?
I guess I would say that ensuring residents feel empowered within those schemes is really important, because I think actually unless you get residents on board with what you're doing, or actually get their ideas as to what we should be investing in or what we should be doing, then you don't get the right impact in those schemes. So I think that's really, really important. And obviously having like a supportive Live Smart scheme and Live Smart manager has been really, imperative at the same time. But I would say always making sure you're consulting and you're co-designing with the people that you're offering services and programs to. It is my top tip.
I'd actually love to hand that over to Mel as well, because her job is empowering all of these different shelter scheme managers to get on board to the platform. So yeah, what do you think your top tip is, Mel?
Top tip, I mean, similar to Sarah, is definitely getting the residents involved. When you've got the residents saying what they want and the joy that it will bring them and it brings them, that's definitely a huge part of it from a scheme manager's point of view. But I think it's also just from an empowered point of view, just being there to just explain to them what their role is, and actually all they have to do is the people element and just look after their residents, and yeah, that's what they're great at and what a lot of them care about, and is kind of the center of having an intergenerational project at a scheme and for it to be successful.
Well, look, thanks very much for your real detailed answers. I hope everybody has found this happy hour really stimulating. Can I thank the team behind the scenes for helping to put it on? It's been wonderful to work with InCommon, Clarion and partners on this, and we very much would love to take this forward and perhaps hold some in-person events with you as well to really unpick a lot of this further. Just a final word from me. Two things really. One is that we do have a lot of evidence, information and good practice that we can share around intergenerational living. Please do have a look at our website, do talk to us and the team here. Finally, it's something that I think that we need to think about. Often our work around intergenerational living is accidental. It's by chance from a monopoly perspective. What we really need to make sure is that intergenerational living is part of all our community chest. So with my final words, can I wish you all a happy afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you at our next happy hour, where we're going to look at issues around shared ownership for an ageing population next week. Please do sign up if you haven't already done so. But for now, can I thank Serena, Mel, Lois, Sarah, and Sally behind the scenes, who's now on screen, for your excellent contributions this afternoon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.